Good evening, everyone. Welcome to today's Kaleidoscope session. I am Shubhangi and I lead the branding and marketing efforts here at And Academy. So, uh, this is going to be a power-packed session where Janisha will talk about patents and how to sort of protect your ideas as a creative person. But before we dive right into the presentation and the agenda for today, I would like to talk a little bit about And Academy for those of you who do not know about And. So, And is actually the brainchild of Dr. Jitin Chadda, who's also the founder and CEO of IIAD, which is a brick and mortar design school based in Okla. And Academy actually comes from that pedigree of IIAD. Uh, IIAD has been imparting design education for over a decade now, and was born out of that pedigree. Uh, so at AND, we offer professional short courses that are delivered online in a live, interactive, studio-like manner. So think a design school, everything that you would find in a design school. We offer all of that at AND also, but in an online manner. We offer professional short courses in graphic, interior design, and UI UX design. Most of them are part-time courses. We have one full-time course in graphic design. Other than that, these are mostly part-time courses. These are designed for people who have say work commitments during the day, or college commitments during the day. So people who are occupied during the day but still would like to take on a course and upskill and move ahead in their career and pivot and kickstart their journey in design. These are courses designed for those people. As I've already mentioned, we come from the pedigree of IIAD. All of our courses are delivered and designed by people who are actually part of the industry. So you actually get very up to date, very relevant knowledge. People that are practitioners but also academicians. So these are people who are actively contributing to the industry and are also teaching with and. As I mentioned before, all of our classes happen in a live, interactive manner. Today, this session is going to be a webinar mode, where Janisha will be talking about her agenda, and then you will be listening in a passive mode. But this is not the traditional setup for a classroom that we have at hand. This is usually we keep it for master classes only, but in a class at hand, uh, it will be more interactive and you will be required to participate more. Um, we also focus more on the processes of design and design principles rather than just fixating on tools. So you do get to learn relevant tools. So Photoshop or an After Effects or a Figma or a Kuhum or a AutoCAD, you do get to learn all of that. But what is it that you do with those tools? How to think like a designer? What are the processes that you should be knowing to get into the shoes of a designer? What are the design principles at play for you to sort of be able to take on design work and design projects? That is something that we teach here at AND. Uh, all of our courses have in them multiple projects. Um, which you work on throughout your course, and then it sort of culminates into a market ready portfolio at the end. You work on projects with your mentors, with your peers, you get feedback, you have one-on-one feedback session, you have group feedback session, and that sort of feedback and interaction sort of culminates into projects that become better and better over time. We also have a lot of faith in the kind of quality of education that we provide. So we offer placement support on all of our courses and job guarantee also on some of our courses. So if you're wanting to enroll in one of these short design courses, please write to us. You'll find the number on our website also. I'll drop the link of the website here later. Um, yeah, so that's about that. We've been around for over 3 years. We've had 1,200 plus learners. We have a 50 plus mentor body, and we are rated 4.6 on Google. So if you want to check us out, please do that. With that, I will move on to the agenda for today. Um, Today, we're talking about protecting design ideas with Janisha. So, Janisha is an accomplished architect specializing in conservation. She holds both a B.Arch and an M.Arch in architectural conservation from the School of Planning and Architecture, where she was awarded the T.J. Manikam Gold Medal in 2006. Her expertise encompasses architectural history, restoration, conservation management, and cross cultural urban synthesis. Janisha has collaborated with Shah Technical Consultants, IPE Global, and Intac on significant projects including Gobingar Fort in Amritsar, the Hampi World Heritage Site Management Plan, Alwar Museum redevelopment, and heritage protection plan for Rajasthan's historic cities. As an active researcher and educator committed to preserving India's architectural heritage through sustainable conservation practices, Jinisha also serves as a consultant in her field. She's a proud member of Athingham Trust London Alumni Network. With that, I will hand it over to Jinisha. Please take over.
Thank you so much, Shubhangi. That was a very, very long introduction. And I must say, student must be confused now. Now, person of this kind of a CV, what does she have to talk about copyrights and patents? So I'll let that be a surprise for the time being. Okay. Let me share the presentation. Okay. Can all of you see the screen? I'll make it full screen. Okay, so good evening, everyone. And the way I've planned this presentation is I'd wanted it to be interactive. Otherwise, this topic could seem to be very heavy and loaded, right? So I've tried to break it down into something which is more comprehensible and something we can relate with. So if you cannot unmute yourself, I would still request you to, every time I ask a question or I want interaction, I would request you to put your thoughts down in the chat box. Do I get a yes? Okay, one yes. So with that, I'll start. All right. Can anybody tell me what this is?
Janisha, do you want to go back to the full screen mode? I think we've exited that.
Yeah, but I was,
Were you not navigating?
yeah, I was not able to move the slides then.
It's
Yeah, it's happening now.
It's working now. Cool.
Right. So can anybody tell me what this is? It's a can of tomato soup. Right. Okay. Does anybody know the artist by any chance? No, that's fine. So this is Andy Warhol's Campbell soup cans. Okay. Andy Warhol is a very famous American artist and a director. We're going to next slide now. Does anyone know what this is now? Who is this by? This is a capsicum. All right. Any other answer? A pumpkin, right? This is a pumpkin. So we got it right. If any one of you has heard the name of the famous Japanese artist Yayoi Kusama, that's his pumpkin series. So we'll go to next. What is this? Okay, are we there? Are we back? I'm sorry for the
Yes, we can hear you.
glitch that happened. I just lost my connection, right? So I'm trying to be back and pick up from where we left.
Are you able to see the chat, the answers that we've gotten in chat, Janisha?
Chat, I was able to see them then. I'll just see now if there are, yeah.
Some
The
people
new
are saying
ones, no, the old ones have gone.
Oh, so yeah,
Doesn't matter.
some people
Can
are,
you see the slide?
we
All
can.
right, I'll make it full screen then.
So some people are saying that it looks like a seesaw, sofa, recliner, chair.
Right. So that was a rocking chair. It's a rocking chair by a very famous architect called Frank Gehry. And this is the next slide. What is this? Any answers? Lamps, yes. Does anyone know who's the artist? No? Okay, this is Isamu Noguchi. And these lamps are light sculptures. In Japanese, the word light has another name called akari. So they're also called as Noguchi's akari. What is this? The image that you see now on the screen. Anyone? It's Sydney Opera House, right? By, does anyone know by whom? Who's the famous architect? Okay, the architect John Hudson, and Sydney Opera House, as all of you know, is in Sydney, Australia. Just in case now you're wondering, why am I showing you all these works? Could you guess? Could you guess? What is common probably amongst all of these? I need to have an answer before I move to the next slide. What is common amongst all these images that I've shown you? Super famous artists, designers, but we didn't know their name, which is okay. No copyright. We haven't even talked about design ideas. Yes. Name of artist is important. No, name of the artist not important, but we are talking about unique designs, definitely. All right, designs. Somebody said these designs are copyrighted. I don't know, but I'm hoping they are. The point is, Andy Warhol's Campbell soup cans, Yayoi Kusama's pumpkin, Frank Gehry's rocking chase, Noguchi's Akari, and Sydney Opera House, all these, they have in common the fact that they're all works of visual art. You agree with me? Do you all agree with me? Right. And why are we talking about works of visual arts? Because how do they come? They're obviously expressions, but they emerge from ideas that are owned by people. They have authorship. So all those people I talked about, there was a reason why I was asking you, who's the designer? So even though some of you knew some of the works, you still didn't know the designer, which means that we didn't know the author who created them. We didn't know the author who owned the idea. Now, why are we talking about it? Is because it's very easy to comprehend the idea of material property, right? We understand that we own a house. We understand we own a mobile phone. We understand we own a car. But we don't understand the idea, the concept of owning ideas, the idea of owning ideas. Now, what is that? That is our intellectual property. Do you agree? Just like there is material property, there is intellectual property that also demands and requires ownership. Yes or no? Yes. Okay. So that brings us yeah. So that brings us to the question if ideas can be protected. So what are ideas? Ideas are creations of mind. And here we are basically talking about original ideas which have value. So is there a way they can be legally protected? Yes, there is a way ideas can be legally protected. They are intangible assets, right? But they have tangible expressions. Now, what is to be understood here is that these can be protected, but they need to have a medium or an expression that can be protected. Ideas by themselves cannot be protected. Right. So the talk can actually be debunked for that. The title of the talk at least can be debunked because ideas as such cannot be, they can neither be copyrighted nor patented. It's the expression of the medium through which idea is communicated, right, or preserved, that can be copyrighted or patented. But these are definitely forms of intellectual property, just like physical property, and they should be protected against theft, misuse, or unauthorized use. This is what we're talking about. And what is it that actually fall under, intellectual property? It includes the entire gamut of artistic works from paintings, music to books, inventions like machines, formulas, processes, designs like products, patterns, even brand identity, logos, names, slogans. Confidential business information is not protected through a law, but it's protected through contracts, right? And then even geographical indexes that are also a form of intellectual property that can be protected. Now, almost every country has a copyright law in place. And India also have a copyright law, right? So every law is enabled through an act. And we have an act for the copyright, which is called the Copyright Act 1957. It came into enforcement in 1958. Now, this act very clearly defines what exactly is copyright, right? And visual art, amongst many other type of works, is copyrightable. So all the works that we saw, right, the images, they can be copyrighted and they are copyrighted. So what is a copyright? It's an exclusive right to original works of authorship, which means the moment we're talking about copyright, we have to have an author and we have to have some original work. Okay, so this is very important. The second thing is these works must have a tangible medium or expression. For example, if I have an idea of a painting, okay, just having an idea doesn't help me. That cannot be copyrighted. But if I have actually created the painting using colors, textures, a certain medium, right, that can be copyrighted. Similarly, if I have an idea for a novel, the idea itself cannot be copyrighted. But the text for the novel, the literature for the novel can be copyrighted. So copyright inevitably becomes enforceable as and when original works are created. This is another very important point to be understood, that even though there is a law that exists, but usually a copyright is a right. That is the right of the author that comes into existence automatically when the work is created in a tangible medium. So this is to say that I made a painting. I've not yet copyrighted. I've not yet filed for a copyright registration, right? But the copyright for me still exists because I'm the author. However, when you do go for official or say legal registration of the copyright, it does give you an added advantage. That is them. The other thing we need to understand is every country has their own copyright laws, because of which there is some territoriality in copyright. Okay, there are international conventions, which I'll come to later. But the fact is, if, for example, I get copyright registration for a work in India, right? I am an Indian and my work is created in India, then I'll be filing for copyrights in India. But if I see a larger audience, right, then I may have to get copyrights in all the territories where I see my work being floated. All right. So there is no single or universal, there is no common international copyright law. However, there are conventions. Okay, India is signatory to certain international conventions which enables protection of your work, which is protected in one country into the other. Okay, and there is something called priority claim. So you can ask, because for this, you can come back to me towards the end of it if you really want to know about it more. I'll move with the presentation right now. So when we say exclusive rights in artistic works, I had only given you example of the artistic works, but you can have exclusive rights, which means you can have copyrights for in cinema, in music, in literature, right, and graphics. So all these areas are copyrightable. And what exactly are we talking about when we say rights? It means you can reproduce your work. It means you can communicate your work to the public. It means you can distribute copies. It means you can include it in cinematographic fields or wherever. It means you can even adapt your work creatively. All these rights belong to you and no one else unless and until they take permission from you. If they do not, then it becomes unauthorized use of or infringement of your right. All right, we would be looking at these examples. So whatever I talked about is actually enabled here in India to the Copyright Act 1957. And the act has been amended 5 times since then, 2012 being the last. Now, who is an author? So the act only defines, okay, I've taken these definitions from the act itself. Author means in relation to a literary or dramatic work, the author of the work. In relation to musical work, the composer. In relation to an artistic work other than photograph, the artist. In relation to a photograph, the person taking a photograph. Not the person who is in the photograph. Okay. In relation to a cinematograph, film or sound recording, the producer. And in relation to any literary, dramatic, musical or artistic work, which is computer generated, it's the person who causes the work to be created. All right. So the diagram on your site is actually showing you which all areas which all works can be copyrighted. Literary, dramatic, musical, artistic, cinematograph, and sound recordings. This I've already talked about. Now, what is definition? I will now be focusing more on artistic work because as budding designers, this is what is our area, right? So we need to get an understanding of this. So when we say artistic work, it could be engravings, it could be drawings. Okay, drawings could include diagram, map, architectural drawings, interior design drawings. It could be sculptures, it could be paintings, it could be the reels that communication designers work on. They could be photographs, they could be even works of architects. Okay, the drawings of buildings and structures, the photographs of those. It could be craftsmanship, skilled work that requires craftsmanship. Now, again, I would want your interaction before I can move forward. I'm sharing with you an image. I think a lot of you know what this is. This is the famous fur painting. It's a traditional folk art from Rajasthan, India. Now, my question to you is, we have many such examples. India is replete with traditional folk arts and crafts. Now, can this be copyrighted is my question. What do you think? And these are all original works, like these showcase craftsmanship. Can this be copyrighted? Any guess? Did I get an answer? Yes, yes, you think. Okay, some people said no. Can you tell me why? All right. So there are some interesting comments which are coming. Some people say yes, some people say no, because they do not belong to any one person. They actually belong to a community. Right. Some people said they can get geographical index, which is right. Okay. So this is traditional art form. Now, because this art form is already in the public domain and some of you were able to answer it, and it's a century-old folk tradition, you are free to create, reproduce, or adapt works in the same style without infringing copyright. Okay, anything. Now, this is what we are treading upon. The copyright, as it may sound, is not as simple as it is, It has many dimensions to it. So, unique works, original works created having authorship, they can be copyrighted. All right. But traditional arts are already in public domain and they are century-old crafts. They show a tradition. So they are not within the ambit of copyright law unless and until, right, some craft person particularly go ahead and files the registration if or she thinks he or she's created a unique expression, not the expression is old. He's created a unique narrative using that expression, right? Or if it's an adaptation. So if it is an adaptation by a contemporary artist, or even if it's photographed, and then they want to go ahead with the copyright, then they can, right? Unless and until they choose to release it under the open license. So this is another category of copyright where An open license is something where the work belongs to you, but you allowing people to use it under the Creative Commons. Okay, so any work which is copyrighted needs a license by the other party so that it can use it. And Creative Commons, when we download Google Images, right? Or we take information from Wikipedia, then either there are two things, either we should attribute it or we should look if those ones have a license for Creative Commons, which means that at least in the public domain, they can be used. And the other way these can be copyrighted is if they are under the ownership of a museum or an online gallery. But otherwise, these are in public domain. So it is better to get a GI index for them. All right, there is another image. This I can tell you, this is one of the last architectural drawings by a very famous architect called Carlos Scarpa. And it's a folded, messy drawing. Now, my question is, do you think this is copyrighted? Something like a drawing, you think it can be copyrighted? Yeah, so somebody said traditional Kolhapuri chappals. Now you need to check whether Kolhapuri chappals have a GI index. Probably not. Sorry, yes, it can be. So now, very interestingly, this drawing was made by an architect and the architect died, right? So the drawing was found after his death. Now, can this be copyrighted is the question. The drawing is a physical manifestation of the idea, yes, on those grounds, yes, but it's done by an architect who died and only the drawing was found. And maybe the architect didn't get it copyrighted in his lifetime. So what happens to such a situation where you had an author, maybe he got things copyrighted, maybe he didn't, then what happens? I'm just showing you example of a drawing. It could be anything. It could be an original work by somebody, but then he dies. Then what happens to copyrights? You think they will continue or they languish? Any answer? All right. So what happens if you have such a scenario, right? Then the copy, and if it's a registered copyright, the copyright persists. So by the Indian law, at least, the copyright is for the entire lifetime of the author plus 60 years. So it stays after the demise of the author up to 60 years. In many other countries, the period is more or less the same. In some places it's 70, in some places it's 60, right? And usually after that period, the work comes in public domain, which means it can be freely disseminated for the benefit of the public. Otherwise, right, what usually then happens is, but if he was a very legendary person, then whatever his belongings actually then become copyrightable by the inheritors. So in case of the Scarpa drawing, the Scarpa's heirs, right, who actually put together an archive. So the copyright now rests with the archives. Or you would have to take permission from the heirs of that family. So it's not that we can take things lightly. If there was an author and he dies and he goes away, then everything vanishes. No. All right. Now we're coming to something more interesting. What do you think is happening here? This you guys know, you have to tell me. Yes, what is it? This image? Tattoo, right? What do you see? What do you observe in the tattoo? Mike Tyson's tattoo on the left. Exactly, similar tattoo. You know, similar, exactly similar tattoo. You know, where is this still from? Does anyone know? Does anyone know where is the tattoo copied? I can tell you it's a movie.
Yeah, people are saying hangover in the comments.
Yes, yes. Okay, yeah, exactly right. So what do you think? Now, my question to you, do you think this is fair use of someone else's original artwork? A tattoo is an artwork too, right? You think this is fair use? You think this is fair use? Why? Okay, I got two yes. Tribal tattoo so fair. No, tribal tattoo so fair use. Ah, we don't know if it is a tribal tattoo or not. It looks like because of the waves or not, but it's a unique tattoo. Obviously, if Tyson chose to have it on his face, right, where it's been composed, how it's been composed in relation to his eye, right, and it's actually a very unique tattoo tailored to a legendary personality, and the same has been copied. Comedic parodies of movie critics come under fair use. Now, this is one of you said that, but when we start talking about fair use, we have to understand what fair use is, right? I can tell you for this for sure. This is not fair use. One, this has exactly been copied. It's been copied in a film. You have to understand the film is a commercial film, which is meant for making profit, right? And the other thing is, when this was copied, the tattoo artist was not consulted. Nobody took his permission. So do you think this is fair use? Do you still think this is fair use? No. Yes. So this wasn't fair use. This is fair use is what is permitted within the copyright, right? The exceptions which are permitted within the copyright law without breaking the copyright law. So we don't use the word breaking, we use the word infringement. So when the copyright law gets violated, you have an infringement. This was definitely an infringement of the fair use. Because the fair use policy in copyright is a legal doctrine that allows limited use of copyrighted material needing permission from the copyright owner under specific circumstances. And usually, what are these circumstances? These are circumstances that are motivated by public interest. So what are these? So if, in a documentary, somebody is critiquing, right, or researching, and showing that work because they're critiquing, they're using it, it's different. Then it will come under fair use. But a film which is targeting its own self, right, for commercial use, they're making profits out of it, but they're not sharing profits with, some other people who got indirectly involved, then this is definitely an infringement. So fair use is for criticism, comment making, news reporting, teaching, academia, scholarship and research, nothing else. And even if in these things there is a commercial motive, right? There is a fiscal interest, then the fair use is infringed. So when Warner Brothers claimed that the use of the design was protected by the fair use policy, it was actually an infringement. And usually when such litigations happen, people try to have an out of court settlement. Now, again, talking about fair use, tell me this. You think this is fair use? No, it is not fair use. See, one of you asked, but did he trademark his art? I think you're talking about the tattoo artist. Even if it didn't I tell you if the fact that Mike Tyson is carrying his tattoo on his face is trademark enough? If it was somebody who nobody knew, maybe probably it was tough for him to establish that he was the artist, but his case was like a case that could easily be blown up. Now, in this case, tell me, do you think this is an infringement or a fair use? No. So one of you said no. Why is that? Yeah, so one of you said, and it's a very interesting, sensible answer, that there is a fine line between getting inspired. There's a fine line between copying, right? So this work actually seems to be more copied because even if you were to look at the facial features, right, everything is copied. बिल्कुल हूबहू जैसे बोलते हैं वैसे तो now what happened, the sculptor who took inspiration from the photographer Art Rogers' Puppies on Top, and the sculptor was Jeff Koons. He titled his artwork as String of Puppies. He said, oh, the work was transformative. And I remember one of you in the chat boxes said, You actually wrote that parodies, right, are allowed for fair use, but this is not a parody. This is an exact copy. So to what extent is that? This is not artistic appropriation. This is not transformation. This is not a parody. And this is not freedom of expression. This is a definite copy. So one thing that I would like to tell you, usually copyright cases, when they pop up, they are taken up case to case basis because every work is unique. So the circumstances under which the work was created and under which it was copied and with the motive it was copied, right, becomes very, very important. So there have been varying results of it, but usually in copyright cases, out of court settlements have been the solutions mostly, unless and until, one party is willing to give away with a big slice of pie of money. Then there's another one for you. Now tell me, is this fair use or this is infringement? Definitely not a fair use, but now we will be strictly using the word whether this is infringement or not. What do you see on the right? Looks like a fan art. Okay, what do you see? A Louis Vuitton pattern on a handbag. LV knockoff. Right, now the question is, this is debatable. What do you think? We are debating. You think this is a copyright infringement or this will pass off? It's a fair use. Okay, I'll give it to you. It's a fair use. Can you tell me how? Why is it a fair use? Okay, it's a fair use, because one of you actually talked about parody in the fact that, there is freedom of expression. So if there are existing brands and one is not intending to copy them for the reason that they want to make money because of the design of that other product, here the intent is very clear that they're actually taking a call on LV and designing something which is more usable by common people who cannot afford LV. So this is falling in the category of my other bag because I can't afford an LV bag. It is the other category of making a parody, taking a satire, but in a very day-to-day, lifestyle way. So this is not a copyright infringement. And the code, when LV sued my other bag, right? My other bag actually came out winners. I'm showing you a few more examples. And each one of us is actually bringing us close to understand the complexity of the copyright law and what it does and why it's important, right? I'm just trying to do it a little more indirectly. So what is it that you see on the top left? You know about this controversy of Napster? Does anyone know what Napster is? No? So Napster was an app which was actually sharing. Yeah, it's a music app that was sharing all music by famous labels and artists without taking their permission. Now, do you think this is a fair use? You doing it for public, or you think this is copyright infringement? And you'll have to tell me why. What was it? Yes or no? Was it a copyright infringement? If they're getting paid, no. Now I can tell you he never took any permission, and he was obviously, Napster was making money to the app, but if they're getting paid, then no, he never took any permission. He never shared any profit. So definitely this is an infringement. He was sued by not one label, but by multiple labels whose music he was floating. It became very popular, right? And there was a huge debate because eventually it was in the public domain and public wanted it. But there was commerce also involved, right? And he definitely infringed not just the rights of one label, but many, because he never bothered to take permission. So it's not that in the name of public interest, we can get away with anything. Now, there's another image on the right. What do you think this is? Do you think this is a copyright infringement? Now, Star Wars and Battlestar Galactica, You know what I'm talking about. They look very similar, similar plot, similar characters. What do you think this is? You think this is copyright infringement, but they're not like exactly similar. And again, you know, there was hue and cry, and both the producers and the teams, they contested. It looks different enough to be inspired. It looks different enough to be inspired. No. Now, here is the thing in this case, even though it looked different enough to be inspired, but the plot line was so close, the timing was so close, characterization, everything, that there was a fair ground that one of them would have to share their, and again, because, you know, movies are big, they have a big commercial angle. So there was a fair ground that one of them would have to part with bigger profits if it had to go higher up in the litigation. So they went for an out of court settlement for this. So it was very close to a copyright infringement. Now, what's happening in the left bottom? What is this image? What is this, if anyone know? Starbucks, yes. And Starbucks famous product, what is it? With Starbucks logo. It's cappuccino, right? Frappuccino, frappuccino maybe. Yeah, frappuccino, yes. Now what's happening on the right? What's happening on the right? Do you think this makes for a copyright infringement? I need to get your answers. No? Yes, no, I haven't received any answer for this one. You're looking at two products, okay, F&B, and what do you think? Do you think this is a copyright infringement? Maybe the name can be an infringement. No, for the Starbucks thing, no, no, no. All right, this was actually a copyright infringement. So even if you were to look at it, if you were to look at it from a distance, they can pass off like as the same product. If you look at it carefully, because Starbucks logo is something that stands out, you can say, oh, the logo is different, right? So the logo, even though it was different, the totality of how the product was being branded and marketed, right, created a competitor for Starbucks. And on those grounds, this was actually the other product by another brand was considered a copyright infringement. And they even named it Fedocino, that rhymes with Frappuccino. But, you know, when the talks were on and the litigation were on during the process, they changed the name to Fredo. And even that didn't work. Even then, it went in Starbucks' favor because, like I said, every copyright litigation is a case-to-case basis. So if you were to look at the overall product, the similarity, the branding, the marketing, all of it seemed to be over and above average inspiration. And in F&B, you know, in branding particularly, if you're creating a product that becomes a direct competitor by using same branding strategies as yours, right, you're doing violation then. So and here, it's not just copyrights, you know, because the moment we talk about brands, trademarks are also in place. The logos are protected as well. Now, the last one is very, very interesting. Does anyone know what this is? Naruto versus David John Slater. So this was a photographer. And I'll tell you what happened. If anyone knows, if you could tell me, it will be more interesting. At least say a yes or no. It's a selfie. Yes. Who says Prajwal? Yeah, it's a selfie. Can you tell me more about it? Can you write more about it? Prajwal, can you write a little? How do you know it's a selfie? So Naruto is a monkey, and very interestingly, so this very famous photographer, John Slater, he went to take photographs. Okay, like he went to do his photography, and it so happened that his camera was taken or he forgot it, and this particular monkey got his hands on it, and he took his own selfies. Now the twist comes. Okay, Slater got these selfies copyrighted in his name. And PETA filed a litigation suit against Slater saying Naruto, okay, should also be a partner in the copyright. He should also be holding the copyright jointly with Slater because he took his own selfie. What do you have to say to this? You think it's fair? It's captured using a phone. No, it was actually captured using a camera. What do you think what is happening here? What do you think the courts would have said? Do you think this is copyright infringement? I'm not going to tell you. I have to have an answer from you. Say something, write something. Yeah, the question is, but does Naruto even know what he did? Can animals have copyright? Yes, because he took a selfie. Now, this actually leads to very interesting debate. So legally in law, we do not have any provision other than humans, because copyright laws are for humans. We do not have provision where there could be authorship by anybody else. Right. So in this case, Slater definitely had an advantageous side, but then PETA was also not going to give up. So they had again an out of court settlement where Slater decided to give some profits of his selling Naruto's photographs to animal welfare. Okay, the trust, because the major thing was, see, obviously one can sense that even what Slater did was not right. He didn't take the selfie, he didn't take those photographs either. So how can he be the author of something that Naruto did, right? Just because his camera was used. But because in law, the judge very clearly said there is no provision for any non-human copyrights. Okay. So Slater cannot be persecuted for that. Now, this brings us to a very important question, because these days AI has become very common. All of us are using it to create images. It makes our life easy. It makes our work faster. The question is, when we're using AI created images, because there is no in legal terms, right? By law, there is no provision for non-human authorship. Now, who gets the authorship for AI created work? What do you think? AI cannot, definitely, because there is no such law. Then who should get? The person giving the prompt and taking ownership of impact? That's the big question. Yes. But based on whatever we've seen, we've understood so far, what do you think it should be? The person who is creating the prompt, definitely, because there's some idea coming from there. But what about the person who's created the app or the tool for you, which you're using? Have they yet granted you the rights where you can use the tool, and then whatever you create, you can use it for your own purpose? But have they granted you the rights where you can use it for a purpose where you're making money from it? Have they done it? Do we know they've done it? So this is the question. Right. So if I use the image that I've shown you, this is an image that I use for one of my projects, but I used it only for research and academia. I'm never going to put it in public domain. And one of the other things which I would do is I would always attribute the source with which I created, right? Because I never know if, I understand that this is created through Copilot. So Copilot is not a co-author for me, but I don't know if Copilot allows me to, use images that I've created through Copilot for monetary benefits or for commercial purpose, or if I can copyright them. I don't know that yet. So that is a great territory, but be very cautious, right? There is no non-human authorship, but it's a contested area. Now, this is another very interesting thing that I'm going to show you here now. What do you think is happening here? What do you think is happening here? Yeah, why do you think the Louvre in Paris has been blacked out in the image? Can anyone guess? Yes, that's all right. It's the Louvre. But if you can see in the image, it's been blacked out. Why? To avoid copyright, I guess. So now, this brings us to a very important take on copyrights. There is something called a freedom of panorama. Now, there is a work, say this Louvre is a celebrated building by an architect called I.M. Pei. Okay. And obviously the works are copyrighted. The drawings are copyrighted. Even the imagery is copyrighted. So the law in France doesn't allow any work which is copyrighted to be even photographed, right? So in this image, it has been blackened out. It doesn't allow. So this is now what's really happening on the right. Let's see vis-a-vis the contrast of it. If just in case you were thinking कि हमने तो बहुत photographs देखे हैं Louvre Museum के, वो कैसे possible है? That's because they take official permission. So if you don't take it, then it's a copyright infringement. Now what's happening on the right? Can anybody tell me? It's a photograph of Corbusier's building, but it's not blackened out. Why? Can any guesses? How do they enforce it? They enforce it because they know what are the copyrightable works. So if somebody is a photographer is doing it with, if I go to Paris and I'm doing it without permission, right, then I'll blacken the image out just to save myself. India doesn't prohibit photos. Why doesn't it prohibit photos? Say, Le Corbusier's works are also copyrighted. Then would I still be able to click photographs? So the answer to this is there is something called a freedom of panorama. So when we talk about copyright, we also need to know the copyright exceptions. Right, in India as well in many other countries, freedom of panorama is dealt with in section 52, okay, of the Copyright Law of India. And it's a very important expression which basically says that any building or a sculpture or an artistic piece which is in public domain, right, for the virtue of the fact that it's part of a landscape which belongs to the public, and public have a right on it. They would want to, right, take photographs of the place they belong to, or they're moving to, they're traveling to. So this is what is called as the freedom of panorama. And in this case, copyright is not violated if they're taking a photograph of the building for that reason, right? So in movies, you would see a lot of interesting settings are used which have landmark architectural buildings or landmark sculptures. So they are not violating copyright law because it falls within the freedom of panorama. Okay. But it's not the same in all the countries. So we have many places in France. Okay, there is no freedom of panorama. Then the other one you see, Denmark doesn't have freedom of panorama. So the mermaid has been blackened out. Similarly in Africa, South Africa, there's no freedom of panorama. I wanted to show you another image. Now you already had seen Sydney Opera House. Okay. And I'm showing you this image. What does it mean? So in Australia, freedom of panorama is dealt with in their Federal Copyright Act. Does this apply to photographing people in public spaces? With people are not copyrighted, right? So it's a different ball game altogether. The ethics is that you have to take permission of the people. They may feel that their privacy is being violated, which is a different thing. But people per se cannot be copyrighted. So the all the examples that I showed you of buildings and artistic works by famous architects or artists which are already in copyrights. Okay, which are not copyrighted, those photographs you can take, whether there is freedom of panorama or there is not. So the case of Sydney Opera House is very, very interesting because the drawings of Sydney Opera House, okay, are copyrighted. Then even the logo of Sydney Opera House is, they've created a logo of the Sydney Opera House with the sails and all, saying that this is a very kind of a brand identity for the entire city of Sydney. So that is copyrighted. But the Australian law allows for freedom of panorama. So you can still take images of Sydney Opera House. So this is interesting. Okay. Now, I'm coming to another question because we're almost towards ending. And in this time, I could have only covered in detail, somewhat in detail, copyrights. But like I said, there are many other things in intellectual property. We have patents, we have geographical indexes, right? We have trademarks. So just before I was to end, I wanted to ask you people, amongst all the photographs that I'm showing you, what do you think should be copyrighted here? Second, Second is you talking about this chair with a very organic form and a bird. This should be copyrighted. Okay. Anything else? Chair and mural and graffiti. That's the answer. I've got the chair and the mural and the graffiti. What about the other things? The chair, if you can see my cursor, the mural, and this is the graffiti actually. This is a mural. Yeah. What about the other three products? This one, and then this. What do you think? What happens to them? How do I protect them? If they cannot be copyrighted, and if not, why not? Do I have an answer? I guess all because of them are art. Oh, they're all designs which will have copyrights. Okay. So actually, the images that you see, right? The top left, which is a chair with metal legs, that chair is actually a product of industrial process. So it's not that the design of it cannot be protected, but we have another twist here, that anything which is mass produced or anything which has exceeded its copy over 50, it's had 50 copies. So it actually touches the definition of mass production, and which probably means that it is being mass produced through industrial processes or through processes which are easily replicable. It is not good to get them copyrighted. So you do not copyright register them, but you designed it. There is something called a design acts as well. All right. So all these, the wallpaper, the lamp which is made by industrial process, the chair with metal legs which is prepared by industrial process, the upholstery, okay, the on the curtain, the pattern, the paisley motif, right, which is a unique pattern probably, but it is replicated in hundreds, okay, of my curtain designs. Then you cannot copyright them. Copyright, even if you've got them copyrighted, the moment the copies exceed 15 number, the copyright languishes. So you have to get design registration for them. Is everybody with me on this? Did you know this? So if you sell 50 plus copies of an art, you make 50 copies, then you'll have to get a design registration and not a copyright registration. This is something I wanted to, you people to know. That's why I showed this. Now look at this. Which one of you think now, based on what I've told you, should be copyrighted? Design registration is kind of copyright registration where you are again protecting, all right, your works of art, works of digital art or works of art produced through industrial processes, but not through the Copyright Registration Act, but the copyright law, but it's through the Design Act. I'll tell you. This, what can you copyright here? The last one is M.F. Hussein's painting, definitely. Veena, lady on the Veena, that you can get copyrighted. The middle one, it's a vacuum cleaner. Do you think you will copyright it? What would you do with it? Or would you get it design registered? And Coca-Cola, you will get it copyrighted. 1 and 3 can be copyrighted. Now, 3 definitely, Hussein's painting can be copyrighted. It's already automatically copyrighted. Okay. Second is a vacuum cleaner. So the moment we're talking about a thing which is to be used, it is come through an engineering process or an industrial process. There is a technology involved in it. The other thing, it's not copyright. Then the patent is something that one should go for, because this copyright and designs both only protect the design aspects. There's something to do with the appearance, right? But the inner processes, the technology, they don't protect it. Then you have to get that product patented. So the middle one will actually be patented. Now, what happens to the first one, Coca-Cola? There are 3 things happening in Coca-Cola is a very interesting bit. Even in the middle one, You can get the technology patented, all right, but you can still get the design of the vacuum cleaner because this is so unique registered. Only the, by design, I mean the appearance of it. And because this is mass manufactured, you do not get it copyrighted per se, you will get it design registered. You'll get its design registered. What is happening with Coca-Cola? There are three things here. One is the design of the bottle, one is the contents within, and the third thing is the logo. So logo gets a trademark registration. All right. Why? Because again, there's no meaning of it being copyrighted. You selling it in millions, right? Then the bottle will get a design registration because a very unique shape of the bottle. Again, not a copyright. And the contents inside is a trade secret. So there's no law for that, but then usually it is under terms of confidentiality within an organizational or institutional setup with people, right? That's how you protect. So that's what I wanted to tell you. It's not possible for us within this time frame to get too much into details of patent and trademarks and GI, but I've tried to touch upon all of it, and I hope you find it interesting. So the IP laws we have in India are India Copyright Act 1957, Designs Act 2000, Patents Act 1970, and Trademarks Act 1999. I've not included Geographic Index here, right? And they do different things. I've also given the examples. The validity is different for each of them. For copyrights, it's the longest because that's the work which is created with a lot of manual effort, right? Lifetime of the author plus 60 years. Design Act, the copyright is 10 years. Patents Act, 20 years. And Trademarks Act, 10 years. Okay, patents, tough process. Patent in itself is a tough process. It requires something called prior art, which means that you have to, and it needs a legal hearing and all. Like, again, if you're interested, we can have another talk on this sometime. I would like to call it a day for today. So what does copyrights do? They safeguard your creative concepts and authorship. They prevent unauthorized use. They foster innovation through protection. They enhance user experience because you motivate. When you get something copyrighted, right? I'm talking from the corporate perspective or the perspective of the brand. They would be motivated to bring additions and changes for user experience. And each of them needs to be copyrighted. And it also prevents commercialization and monetization by third party who doesn't deserve it because it was your hard work. So this is what copyrights and patents do in design. And definitely this is something which is overlooked, but they're very, very important. In interior design, we can get interior layouts copyrighted, artistic elements, custom graphics, murals, sculptures, photos, plans, drawings, right? Patents, we'll do it some other time. And then in the end, I just wanted to show you example of why am I talking about copyrights for that matter? Because the introduction that Shubhangi gave, that just colored me as a conservation architect and as an architect, but I've been in academia for very long. I've also worked as an architectural journalist. I know copyrights in and out for that matter. And as an academician, also somebody who researches, it's been a thing with me where the students that I taught, right, or I encouraged, I ensured whenever they did something new, something interesting, it was original work, we got them copyrighted. So I'm showing you one of the board games. This is the thing that I used to teach history. So even though I'm an architect, it's not important that I get only architectural drawings copyrighted. We got the board games that we created to teach history or to teach architectural courses copyrighted under. Now, this is again something of learning. You can get one work, get copyright registration at the same time under more than one category. So we got them registered in literature and in graphic design. I'm just showing you as an example, and there's an entire process of how you do it. These days, it's still easier because everything's online. If any one of you is interested, you can do an e-filing yourself by going to copyright.government.in. And coming back to the question of can ideas be copyrighted or patented, I think I've taken you to a journey and you can answer this on your own now. If they can be copyrighted and how and why. So I will like to end the talk with this. If there are any questions, we'll be happy to answer them. Shubhangi, I thought I stuck to the time.
Yes, yes. I think we have had so many questions. I was reading throughout your presentation. People were already asking questions while you
And I
were.
was trying to answer them there and then.
Yes, yes, yes. So So just to make it more systematic, if you still have more questions, just put it in the Q&A box so that we can sort of not go through the chat box and go back to the entire history of chat. Just put it in the Q&A box and we can sort of answer them systematically. That'll help you also. So just put it in the Q&A box. Okay, so Nishita, who's also a mentor at An Academy, she's asking, she's also an architect. For a book where we're the author, do we
Yeah.
have to apply for a copyright separately or is it covered under the ISBN process?
That's a very interesting question because I've had 3 books published. Okay. And I've always asked my publisher, I have competition books that are published. And what happens in competition books, you have to update them every year, right? So I've asked my publisher many times, is it copyrighted? I think it is very tough to get the entire text because it's say about 2000 pages copyrighted because then you have to send the entire manuscript. But what happens when you have an ISBN number, you already are protected because the ISBN number is an identification number which is meant to be given to publishers and authors for the purpose of trading, more for the publishers. And the other thing is they always throw a disclaimer on the front page where they say this work.
So we do have more questions. Um, so Hamid is asking if I design a furniture, a one of one piece, can that be copyrighted?
If he designs a furniture, one off,
If I design a furniture, a one piece, basically they're trying to say that if they design a piece of furniture that is unique, that is one
that
piece
can be copyrighted,
that can.
definitely. And if it's using some very interesting mechanism, for example, IKEA, it does not even get, it's not only getting design registrations or copyrights, but it's also getting patents. Because the moment we including some technological invention, like the sliding doors, right, or some kind of mechanism, okay, then you can even go for a patent. But it's a handcrafted, like the chair example I showed, that can be copyrighted.
Right. Do we have any more questions? Um, Veera is asking logo will be copyrighted. Acha, oh, maybe.
Logo, the design of the logo can be copyrighted, right? But you should also get a trademark because trademark stands for branding laws. Like
Some
I said, when there is a litigation, then every case is interpreted case by case.
right.
And the moment there is a trademark, then we're talking about a competition, like the example that I showed of Starbucks Frappuccino. So more than copyright is what a trademark violation.
So somebody is asking, am I at the risk of being sued because of my tattoos because I took inspiration from Pinterest?
If he copied from someone who'd not copied and it was his original design. So we don't know that because in the world we living today, so we making copies of copies, right? So then yes, if somebody originally is copied, he doesn't know it and he finds that out, then definitely he has a chance to be screwed.
Which is something that I've seen happen a lot often now with designers and tattoo
Yeah.
designers.
So the one of the points is we take design so much for granted, right? Everything around us. So this is something we need to know. There are countries where you cannot even take photographs unless and until you have permission. So we are lucky we have freedom of panorama. We are lucky we have freedom of expression. Okay, so these are the assets. These are the advantage. We are lucky that there's so much in public domain. Now with archives.com, all those books and publication for which copyrights had expired, they are in within our reach. However, that still doesn't mean we should take it for granted. It is the right. It is an exclusive right, and we should respect the originality of some other creator.
So Hamid is asking, how do we get in touch with Janisha after for a quick chat? Janisha, would you be comfortable with me sharing your email ID with the group?
I don't mind that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
And if they are like really interested, there could be another continuation of the same talk. That would be more useful because
Sure, sure. All right, all right. Somebody is also asking if, as a designer, we were required by our seniors to use copyrighted design for commercial work, would the designer be liable for a lawsuit?
ask that again.
If
How is the
design,
designer liable for if
if
you hire a designer? Is it the question?
so the question is that my seniors are asking me to use some copyrighted design for commercial work. Am
Oh,
I
no, then if it is for commercial work, then you cannot do it, right? Then it should not be done. You should stay away from it. The senior can do it herself, himself, and then get the taste of their own medicine.
Ishita is asking, when images are sold online, paying some amount, but some people use it directly from Google or Pinterest without paying. How do photographer and pattern designers secure their design and get charged for it?
See, usually you would have seen a lot of photography, the one which is in Creative Commons. You can download it, you can use it. And that is usually very low resolution. So what will you use it for? आपका कुछ academic purpose होगा, you want to share the information, but you really want to monetize it, then you have to have good set or good standard of photography, high resolution. So that is not accessible easily. And you would have seen a lot of these photographs, they have trademark imprint behind. So you are not supposed to remove it. That is an infringement. Even if you put these things on AI, they will tell you they're not supposed to do it. It goes against the instructions they've been given. So no.
Stains Schwartz is asking, should copyright laws be rectified with the advancement of technology in art and design?
Again, like I said, you have to understand that there's not just copyright law, there's the patent law, there's the trademark law, there's the design law. So, and within the territory you are in, you have to go for which works the best for you. For anything which is for the being created through industrial process, like I said, if it is over 50 copies, or you see it like that where you will be making a lot of copies and then selling, then design registration is to go for. It's easier to get. The time period is also smaller. Copyright, the time period is longer, but there have been litigation in court cases in the past where more copies were created during that time period and the copyright ceased. So all these things are there. We have many laws in place and it changes territorially, right? So in India, you have some, in the others, you have some. But the moment, also in design, we are these days talking international, right? So even though I talked about India, it's important if I know of people who are making furniture here, but they said they're exporting it to these states. So right, and the designs are coming from Switzerland or something like that. I know of these cases. So they get their design registration or copyrights in all these different countries who protect themselves.
Right. Somebody is asking, how did the Kolhapuri Chappal Prada lawsuit thing work out?
It's not worked out. It's been a huge in contestation,
Right.
and that will not be called original.
Nishita is asking, collage art uses printed photographs from all over the places. What is the copyright status here?
You actually cannot if they're copyrighted. So you cannot use them even for a collage. You should be taking permission. So when I do my research papers, you asked about publication, right? So in publication, if there's any image that is going which is not mine, I ask for permission. And the two ways you can get permission, one is sometimes they allow you, so you have it in written, so you give credits, right? And sometimes they take money for it, then they allow it. But when you give money, then again you have to clarify if you can use it one time or you can reproduce it and use it many times. All these things have to be put in place. So there have been instances where we had to pay to use some images, and sometimes people had been kind enough to allow us. For example, I worked with Antonio Martinellini, who's a very famous French photographer, and he's done amazing photography. Because I had a working relationship with him, I wanted to use it somewhere, some of his photographs, which I think a photographer of his stature wouldn't allow anyone, but he gave me permission, right? But I have written permission to use them for a very specific purpose. Now I go beyond and use it somewhere else, maybe then he'll not be happy, right? So we need to take care of all these things.
I think we've arrived at the last question for the evening. We've overshot our time by a lot also. If I use a cartoon or doodle character or famous movie actors scene in my creative or commercial purposes, will it be copyrighted? It will, I think they
It should
want to
not
ask,
be
will it,
copyrighted because this is your work.
right.
Right, but this could be taken otherwise. The character you making, he may take it as an offense. So the moment you make bad, so this is some other law then. This is, but not definitely you can do it.
Right. Dinesh is asking, is it legal to trace artwork that is being used?
Trace, no.
I think there's a lot of gray areas that people don't know or talk about in the protecting the design and the copyright.
Exactly. Exactly. And I'll give you another example. So the book that my book was published, okay, copyrighted, I don't know, definitely ISBN protected. And what happened? This was a competition book. So a lot of coaching centers sprang up and they started lifting question answers from the book and started uploading it online and making money for it. Then we had to send them legal notice, and
Right.
all of them offered an apology and they stopped, and we also stopped there, but we could have asked them to share the profits with us. But usually nobody wants to get into those litigation. But why I'm giving you these examples is all these things do come to protect you in some way or other. Because if there is something you've created, there are two reasons, right? Either it is for your own satisfaction, even then you don't want somebody to misuse it for any other purpose, or it is created for a monetary benefit. So if it is created for a monetary benefit, then you who's put in the effort are the right or people who are associated with it. Right. So in the film, it's the producer. In literature, it is the publisher. In the music industry, it's again, somebody who's the production house, the label. So these are the people who should be getting the profits. Why should somebody else who's got nothing to do with become? So you have to protect yourself, just like you protect your own house, car, and everything. It is a gray area and it is something which is heavily undermined. I don't see people talking about it. People think it's useless, but it's not. They don't know they're not protected. Definitely for creative people, they have to protect themselves.
Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us, Janisha. It's been a wonderful time. I thoroughly enjoyed myself. I was so attentive and hearing everything that you were saying throughout the masterclass. Um, Amazing, great work. Thank you. I think we should have a follow-up session. Maybe I'll connect with you offline to just like facilitate that. Thank you all of our audience members who sort of stuck around till
Yeah,
the
I would like to thank them too because they were so interactive. Without the interaction, it would have fallen flat. Thank
uh,
you so much.
so thank you. Bye. Good
Bye
night.
bye. Good night.